Dialects and accents are fascinating things, the way they vary throughout the country. Probably no more so than when you go to the far north and compare dialects and the way people talk there to the far south. I'm thinking in particular of away north in the Shetland Isles, the way people talk there. I used to live there during the 1960s with my grandparents, and my old granddad up there spoke with a very strong Island of Yell accent. But I was born and spent most of the 50s in Wiltshire. My dad was a Wiltshire man. He was a moonraker, and all his side of the family were moonrakers. And my old Wiltshire granddad, the first granddad I knew, spoke with a very broad moonraker accent. "Bain't no flies on we," as he would say. "No flies on us." But in 1958, I had to say goodbye to all that and go away up north to Shetland, to the island of Yell, and live there with my grandparents. My granny died quite soon afterwards, but happily my granddad lived for many, many years after. We lived in the same house together, and eventually I got quite used to the way he talked. But when I first met him, and met all the Shetland people up there, I did struggle a bit. But my granddad, my Shetland granddad, was a lovely, lovely man. When I arrived there, it was a case of, "Come do, Kenny boy, come do and set thee doon now." And then he would chat away with me in his Shetland accent. And that was fine. And the first thing that happened was I started going to a new primary school in Yell in north of O. It wasn't a big school. There were 8, 9 of us, not in my class, in the entire school. We had a very good teacher, Mrs. Barclay, but she was of the old-fashioned type. It was the 3 R's. I don't really remember her giving us anything in the way of art or music, and certainly not sport. There was no point in having a primary 1 kid racing 100 yards or doing the long jump next to a primary 7 kid. So it was the 3 R's that we got, and that was that. Until one day Mrs. Barclay announced to us that there was going to be a visitor, not to our school, but to the island, just across the Vaugh in Mid-Yell, none other than the Queen. Now, the late Queen, the Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and all her overseas bits and bobs, was coming to see us. And she was coming up on the royal yacht Britannia. So that was fine. What made it particularly exciting for us kids was that we were going to be going with other school kids from the island, from Yell, and we were going to get to meet the Queen. We were going to sing her a song. Oh, that's fine. And bearing in mind the population of the whole island back in, this was 1960, would have been about 1,000. And I think some of the kids came over from the island of Faider as well, but the population of Faider back then, I'm having a stab at it, maybe 50, between 50 and 100. So not many people, so there weren't many kids. So it was guaranteed we would be getting close up to the Queen, and we'd be seeing her in all her glory, which I assumed meant there would be a crown, there would be jewellery, some sort of a flowing robe with white fluffy bits around the edges, perhaps an orb and sceptre, because that's what all the photographs I'd ever seen of the Queen were like. So that was going to be interesting, and some bloke called Prince Philip was going to be with her, which was of no interest to us at all. And I went home and told my mum, and of course my sister, she was at school with me. We went home, me and Margaret went home and told our family that the Queen was coming. I remember Mum being quite excited. My granddad, he was an old man then, completely blind, he couldn't see a thing. And I was slightly disappointed that he didn't show more excitement and enthusiasm, but there you are, he was a different generation, and for all I knew he'd seen the Queen hundreds of times before. As it happened, he'd never seen her, but he just wasn't interested. However, what Mrs. Barclay told us at school was we were going to learn to sing this song, and it was going to be in the Shetland dialect. Now, at that point, I'd only lived in Shetland for perhaps about a year and a half, having come up from Wiltshire. So I'd got the hang of it, and my friends at school, yes, I understood what all my friends were saying. And I thought, well, we'll get through this okay. And so we started learning this song. But Mrs. Barclay, the way she did it, she wrote it up on the blackboard one line at a time, and we learnt a line of these words. I'd never seen the Shetland dialect written down before. So we had to learn these strange words, and a tune went with it that none of us had ever heard of before, so we had to try and learn this tune as well. But there were words in amongst it all that I had no idea what they meant, and for some reason Mrs. Barclay chose not to tell us what they meant. So I was just a bit worried that when we all went to meet the Queen and we were singing this song, she would come up and question us and ask us about some of these strange words that obviously she wouldn't understand. And I would really need to know what these words meant. So when I went home, we'd learn one line at a time, and I can't quite remember, we didn't have them written down anywhere, because you have to remember back then we were still using slates and chalk. It was a bit backward, but there we are. I seem to remember we just had to try and remember one line at a time, and then I would go home, practice it at home, and I was fortunate having my Shetland granddad who could help me out with strange words. So practicing went something like this. Now, the song we were learning was called Shetland, and it was written by a guy, John Peterson. I think he was known as Jack, but he was born way back in 1895, so I'm not sure when these words, he wrote it as a poem, and I'm not sure who put the tune to it, but anyway, it's a song, or at least the words come from quite a long time back, and I started learning it a bit like this, with a bit of help from my granddad. Do we wander on forever and seek other lands to lane? But someday do come drifting to the land o' lands again. She's a land o' fairies dancing in the snow white scum. Scum? Grandad, what does scum mean? Foam, Kenny boy, foam. That's what scum means, foam. Thank you, Grandad. O'er the grit grey sea lies skulking the dim shaft simmer home. La 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 la. Shaft simmer home, Grandad. What's the home? Twilight, Kenny boy, twilight. Thank you, Grandad. They're plucking cocky lurries, Grandad, what's cocky lurries? Daisies, Kenny boy, daisies. Thank you, Grandad. They're plucking cocky stories and gathering paddock stools, Grandad. Paddock stools? Toadstools, Kenny, toadstools. Oh, toadstools and mushrooms, Grandad. Yes, toadstools and mushrooms, Kenny boy. Fungi, Grandad, then fungi. Yes, Kenny, fungi. So I can sing and gather and fungi, because the Queen would understand that, wouldn't she? No, the Queen, just sing the words, Kenny. Just sing what Mr. Peterson wrote down. Just sing paddock stools. Thank you, Grandad. And gathering paddock stools, or guddling tricky skeetix, Grandad. Squid, Kenny boy, squid. Thank you, Grandad. The clear salt water pools, I'm racking beery selects, we a preen and docking wander pockin' after smashlins, Grandad, smashlins. Shellfish, Kenny boy. Thanks, Grandad. The Epsteins of the sand, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. By the way, the tra-la-la-la-la, those are my words, those are Mr. Peterson's. Don't blame Mr. Peterson for the tra-la-la bits. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. Shoes along for winter sucking, Grandad, sucking. Sighing, Kenny boy, sighing. Thank you, Grandad. Shoes along for winter sucking, through the spindrift and the squall, and the smoorin' moody cavey. Ah, Grandad, smore moody. What's a moody cavey? Well, Kenny boy, a moody is snow, heavy snow. We wind, heavy snow. Oh, but it's a moody cavey, Grandad. Yeah. Well, a moody cavey, it's a blizzard. Heavy snow and a gale, a blizzard. Oh, I see, Grandad. But this is a smorin' moody cavey. What's a smorin' moody cavey? A smorin' moody cavey, Kenny, is a blizzard when the snow is that thick and heavy and the wind is blowing so hard you cannot breathe. It's suffocating. You're suffocating. I see, Grandad. Have you ever been out in a smorin' moody cavey, Grandad? Yes, Kenny boy, yes. Just sing the song. And the smorin' moody cavey fills the north wind's open wall. Oh, Grandad, an open wall, what's that? Moaning, Kenny boy, moaning. Thank you, Grandad. There I look along the shore mill, among the tang and wharf, for barrel scows and battens and bits of broken spar, for the muckle seas is bracken and stool the clouds of snow, and the tails o' vessels racking with their sails all blown awa. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. So, that was the song, and that's how my Grandad helped me to understand it. So I was a much happier 10-year-old by then. I knew what I was singing, so I was all prepared for the Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, to approach me with a smile, complete with crown, robes, the full works, and ask me what a cockiloorie is. I could tell her. I could say, please, Mrs. Queen, it's a daisy. I was a much more confident little boy now, so we were all set. So, off we went round the other side of the Voe to Mid-Yell to the pier there at Link's house, and we waited. Now, the Queen had come up to Shetland on the royal yacht Britannia, but the Britannia didn't come into Mid-Yell Voe. I don't know, maybe she was too big or something like that. Water not deep enough. She stayed outside the Voe where we couldn't see, and we had to wait until the Queen came in the royal launch, and she came putting in the Voe, up to the pier, and her and Prince Philip and some entourage, and I can't remember if Charles and Anne were with them or whatever, it doesn't really matter. We were only interested in the Queen. And she stepped off, and to my disappointment anyway, she was just a wifey in a coat and a bonny hat and a nice pair of shoes. There was no crown, there was no jewellery, no flowing robes, no white fluffy bits on the edges, no, nothing. Just a wifey with a coat and a hat and a pair of shoes. But anyway, this was the Queen. And that was fine. And I was conscious that there were an awful lot of women around us. There seemed to be far more women than men. And the men were the ones that the Queen went to and shook their hands. They seemed to be the dignitaries. There was a policeman there, I think it would have been Magny Doole, the local policeman. The Lord Lieutenant was there, and other men who did important things on the island, and they all got to shake her hand, and that was fine. We sang our song, and she didn't ask any questions at all. She just smiled and walked on, and she didn't seem to be there very long. I don't know how long she was actually there for, but I seem to remember Prince Philip asked a local man, Bobby Tulloch, who was the local bird expert, said to Bobby, pointed to a bird down on the shoreline and said, what's that bird down there? And Bobby said, "Yon's a haggery, sir," and it was a heron. But Prince Philip obviously knew it was a heron, and he seemed quite accepting of the fact that it was locally called a haggery, and went on his merry way and shook a few more hands. And the next thing we knew, they were climbing back in the royal launch, and they were all putting back out the Vaux, and that was that. And I was aware that on top of the hill, as they went out of the Vaux, there's a hill at the end of north of Vaux called the Head, just known locally as the Head. Its full name was the Head of Hiftigert. And it was just a headland, a hill, that overlooked the Vaux, at the entrance to the Vaux, and could look out into the seas beyond. And I wondered what these dark specks were on top of the hill. But anyway, they hadn't been there before. They were there then, and whatever. So we all went home. We went back to our house, me and Margaret, and our mum had been there as well. And Grandad politely asked how we'd got on and if we'd had a good day, and said, yeah, it was all right. Nothing particularly exciting about it. And that was the height of his interest. He asked no more about it. But later on that evening, some of his old mates came to visit him, and then my granddad took a deep interest in what they had to say, because they were the dark specks on top of the Head Hiftigert. They were the local men from north of Vaux that had no interest in meeting the Queen. They were more interested in seeing the ships, seeing the royal yacht Britannia, and I guess there would have been a frigate with her for security. They were more interested in watching the seamanship, where they anchored, how they anchored, watching the launch, the royal launch going in the water, and watching the Queen and the royal entourage coming in the Vaux. And there was a sailor in the bow, a sailor behind with their boat hooks doing various signals and things, and that's what they were interested in. They could see all that with their binoculars and telescopes, and they could see the pier where the Queen landed and where we all were. So that was what my granddad was really interested in, and they had great yarns all about that. And that basically should be the end of the story. Except we move on some 30 years to 1990. I'm a bit older then, obviously, and I'm on holiday with my family, of all places, in Wiltshire, the place of my birth and where I spent the first 8 years of my life. And it was nice to be there and showing my family around, and we decided to take a walk from the village of Roud the 2 or 3 miles up to the town of Devizes. But rather than walking along the road, we thought we would go up alongside the canal, the Kenneth and Avon Canal. And it's absolutely spectacular, the section of canal that goes into Devizes, because it doesn't go into Devizes, it goes up to Devizes, lock after lock after lock. And anyone who knows anything about canals and canal boats will know all about the Cane Hill locks. They are fascinating, spectacular. That's where we walked. And when I'd been a little boy living there, the Kenneth and Avon Canal was completely overgrown, that section. I remember that quite clearly. But now it was all clean and tidied up. A huge amount of work had been done in opening up the canal. And at the top of the locks, just before Devizes, there was something going on. There were a lot of people. There was quite a gathering, and as we got closer, we could see some flags and bunting, and it seemed like some sort of celebration or occasion. And the closer we got, we realised it was some sort of grand opening ceremony, and that was fine. We thought, oh, this is interesting. We'll go and join the people and see some dignitary would be doing the opening ceremony. And as we got closer, I recognised the person who had cut the ribbon. I recognised the lady. It was none other than Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and all her overseas bits and bobs. And here she was in Devizes, carrying out an opening ceremony. I recognised her and we got very close to her. But did she recognise me? No way. No. Nothing doing. So that was pretty disappointing. However, I did wonder afterwards, and I should have tried this. I wondered afterwards if she might have remembered our little song, and if I had started to sing our little song from 30 years before, when she was up in Shetland, might something have gone ding? Might she have remembered the tune, and possibly even some of the words? If I had sung that song then in Devizes, might she even have joined in? And we could have done a duet. And it might have gone something like this. Do me wander on forever and seek other lands lane, but someday do come drifting to the land o' lands again. She's a land o' fairies dancing in a ring, a snow-white scoom, where the great grey sea lies skulking at the dim soft summer home. They're plucking cocky-loories and gathering paddock stools, or guddling dick-ski-ticks in the clear salt water pools. I'm reckon Billy Sillicks wi' a preening duck and wand, or walking after Swisslings the hipstains in the sun. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. She's a land where winter's sucking through the spindrift and the squall, and the snoring moody cavie fills the north wind's open wall. There I look along the shore mill among the tang and war, for barrel scows and battens and bits of broken spar. For the muckle seas is bracken in stoorlik kloots o' snaw, under tails o' vassals racken, with their sails all blown awa, with their sails all blown awa, all blown awa.